of project stewardship to promote code quality. And if time permits, I'll be, I think, renaming a feature of the app. And I'll try to do it in a backwards compatible way, but I'll just use a bit of pragmatism since we're pretty much in alpha right now. We don't have everything settled on our the data model and everything. So we're able to move and break things right now. There's no users of this app yet. We're working on that. If you'd like to check out the source code, you can stop by github.com/companionshipcare organization, and we're in the companionship care project. So one measure of code quality is, well, several measures I should say, is maintainability. It consists of several measures. Sorry, it's a bit early. I'm getting my thoughts together. And I don't have a badge here, but what we're going to do is add a badge that shows the maintainability of the CiviWiki, the companionship care project. I'm getting my projects mixed up, jumping between them. So we're going to have a new badge here in just a moment. It's going to link to our maintainability report. And then we're going to improve some metrics. We're going to add some advanced configuration. This service is provided by CodeClimate. And let's take a quick look here. CodeClimate, actually I've got the badge over here on this screen. I'll just grab this real quick. Where's that? Badges. These here we go. It's really nice when websites provide a dark view, because the more I sit in front of a screen, the more I realize that this is just essentially a big flashlight. It's shining in my face, shining my eyes all the time. And if it were paper, this would be reflecting light, and the darker shades would be absorbing more of the light. But in so yeah, it would be still quite a lot of light hitting my eyes. But a monitor, right, is emitting light, so it's literally just shining light at me. And switching between dark and light mode websites is quite a difference in my eye strain. I used to think kind of the dark mode was a bit of a fad, particularly in IDEs. We're using that when reviewing code. I thought it was kind of just trying, to be, I don't know, looking cool in my cynical view at that time. But I've realized why, because we developers read all the time. We're reading code, reading docs, and we're sitting in front of this huge flashlight. Okay, so that's enough about small rant about dark mode websites. And so we have an issue here in companionship care, for example, to give a dark mode. Now I'd like this maintainability to come a little bit before the code coverage, and we'll take a preview peek here. Maintainability here is provided by CodeClimate. Code coverage is provided by codecov.io. These services are free for open source projects, so it's really worth your time if you've got an open source project to configure these. So what this CodeClimate does, and there's no dark mode in their dashboard, unless it provides a maintainability score I mentioned earlier, and a test coverage score. Now I'm using a different service for test coverage reporting. I could probably integrate these together. I think I had some troubles getting CodeClimate configured for our test reporter, and ended up codecov.io was just simpler. I can't remember the exact issues I was encountering. Nonetheless, I'm really grateful for this service because it provides some automated reporting on common issues in code quality that can be easy to overlook, and also be a little bit taxing for a reviewer to have to be vigilant all the time, looking out for code smells that can be spotted by machine, more or less. So we're not trying to automate the code review process entirely. We're just trying to make it easier for the human, give them less low-level details to focus on, so that they can think about high-level details like, is this feature going in the right direction? Overall, is the code style organized the way our project likes to organize code? What are the consequences of this implementation? Could this have unintended side effects, things like that you can't really automate. If I'm bogged down with low-level details, thinking about lint and stuff, then I can't really think at the higher level of abstraction. So yeah, that's why we're adding these code quality things. So yeah, some of these similar blocks, well, yeah, this is going to be because they're similar, but they're actually different. And we're using a framework and that abstracts things for us. But nonetheless, this tool will spot those and gives me the option to say, yeah, this is invalid or I won't fix it, things like that. So overall, it'll improve our code quality out having so many arguments. So yeah, I've added the badge, and now we're going to do just a little bit of configuration here. We're going to add some plugins here. Now, I've configured a code climate YAML file, so that means that our configuration is going to be done through this mode, advanced configuration. And I'll be sure to summarize this at the end of the session. Nonetheless, I'm actually adding this directly to the main branch, and that wasn't my intention, just to demonstrate it. So we're going to come back here, cancel that commit, and we're going to work on our code editor. I've got I didn't have a branch ready. My keyboard was messing up. Let's see. I don't have an issue for this. I'm just working ad hoc right now. I just wanted to find something, and I thought it would be good to work on the code climate. Low-hanging fruit. Where is my README? Wow. At the bottom. Oh, it's in alphabetical order. You can tell my brain is just I'm tired. Trying to shift my sleep cycle towards the morning time and have reason to get up in the morning and start the day off doing fun stuff like live coding. All right, so we'll add the maintainability badge. And we can take a look at the test coverage reporting for code climate. Maybe it's easier than I thought. Yeah, so we're going to add that maintainability metric. We're going to track it over time. Now let's take a look at the these XML or these configuration files. This one is going to be in code climate. Coverage is interesting. We're checking that into the thing. Huh. Plugins. So we'll do a 50-50 split here. If my window button works, let's see what's going on here. Normally this works. I can hit window left. Hit F11, I think. There we go. Coffee. I'm on the fence if I can quit coffee. Right now I'm trying to get myself to be a morning person, so I'm not going to take on too many vices at the same time, so to speak, sleeping in and drinking coffee. I'll leave the coffee alone. Just try to switch my circadian rhythm. So companionship care is here. What we need is this little advanced configuration thing. And I think I needed this. So I could define exclude patterns. Now that I think about it, I can define these through the code climate UI and have one less file to deal with. Maybe we'll just stick with this. Let's see how difficult it is. So we're using the YAML format. Where did I see that? Right there. And I might be able to configure it through their app thing. But let me see how difficult it is. All maintainability checks are enabled by default. So we'll leave those as they are. But it's nice that I can override their values here or disable them. Complete list of available plugins. I think I need to be specifying a version number at the top. So let's do that, version 2. plugins, and essentially it's just you name it. Ruby CoffeeScript, Python. We already have a duplication check. Can leave it alone. Pep8 might be a nice one. Do Pep8. See what the configuration is. Pep8 enabled true. I hope this doesn't conflict too much. Put these alphabetically with our pre-commit configuration. And then importantly, we're using black, and Pep8 and black mostly agree, but have some small disagreement. I think we've already configured it Pep8, but let's double check that it's going to get along with black. Or black with Pep8. No, Pep8 needs to go along with black because the line length is the main thing where they differ. Flake 8, check. PyCode style, black. PyCode. Well, what? Maybe I'll need see if we get these errors. Yeah, and this is important. Style guide is about consistency. Consistency with the style guide is important. Consistency within a project is more important. Consistency within one module or function is most important. So locality, like be locally consistent and then slowly be globally consistent. And even the Python community has fairly strong consistency across projects with tools like Black that just does the formatting for you and makes it consistent. So you can, again, focus at a higher level. So let's see. I'll leave the default configuration and then we'll monitor this over time to see if it's giving us conflicting errors. All right, cool. So we're there. We've got this Pep8, Python, Radon, complexity. Interesting. We can try this one out. Radon enabled true. Well, yep, we have a Python 3 project. Try the beta channel. Ooh. Cool, we've got Radon configured, Pep8, Sonar Python, bug risk, clarity, compatibility, complexity, duplication, performance, security, and style. Wow, this is pretty, and you can see there's a little bit of duplication here. And we've got this enabled. Sonar. Tests patterns. Yeah, we get all of our tests. And default's a major. Sounds good. Okay. Well, that's about it. And then there's some community supported ones. Markdown lint might be kind of nice. We have our documentation is mostly in Markdown. All right, so that's not so bad. Let's see. Somehow this commit didn't go in. Ah, let's see. Let's see what this fix me is. To do fix me. Okay, so it's gonna. It would be nice if it would open open a GitHub issue on fix me's or to dos. That'd be cool. All right, so we'll commit those. Push this up. Oh, sorry, I missed that. Create a pull request. And let's see if the code climate runs these improved tests. Now, one other thing I want to do is configure this. There was a way you could tell it to do inline comments. One moment. Cool. All right, so now it's able to do comments on issues. Where was that? Where were we? I guess that was it. Took me to GitHub. Settings, if I refresh now. All right, there we go. Summary comments, that's good. And inline issue comments. Very cool. So now when we have an issue, let's say a pull request that's under review, the code climate will scan it, and if it finds issues, it'll actually add those comments directly inline. I think it even highlights the line of code. Oh yeah, here's an example. Yeah, you can see it gives you a little diff here, and your inline comment just is like a regular regular pull request review. So you can reply to it and resolve it, things like that. And a lot of these, they're actionable, so we can ignore them or whatever we choose. That's nice. All right, so let's see. Code cov is similar to this code cov, in fact, but this isn't a line by line check. And I might be able to disable this. This is slow. It takes up a lot of our CI time, and we're able to do these much faster, I think, with tools like it's essentially the same that code climate is providing. And that way we don't have to wait so long on every commit or every pull request to pass. Now it'd be nice though if code climate could be like one of these checks. so I would know it's running. All right, so I think that's pretty good. It's a small change. Oh, hey, welcome, Dr. Unafraid. Sorry, I just noticed your message over there. Both YouTube and Twitch are working today. Okay, very good. I think the problem was I had my streaming bandwidth set too high, and YouTube doesn't mind. It can have a higher bandwidth, but Twitch has a ceiling, like an upper limit. And my setting was done automatically in this configuration wizard when I set up OBS, or Open Broadcaster Studio. So I didn't notice it at first, but when I have noticed it over time that it's really high, and I was surprised by how high that bandwidth was. So now, yeah, it looks like, are you chatting from Twitch or YouTube? Restream.io, no, I looked at them, but they're like super expensive. I don't want branding on the stream, and so remove branding was starting at, I think, $40 or €40 a month, something like that. So I'm just using what's it called? Streamlabs. Okay, cool. So we got the Twitch chats working today. And last time you were chatting from YouTube, if I recall correctly, or were you also chatting from Twitch? Probably Twitch. You said only the YouTube stream was working though. All right, so now I think we'll just go ahead and merge this pull request. Adds a couple little improvements. Yeah, I checked that out, and yeah, I'm pretty satisfied so far with Streamlabs. It's a good provider, and but I might look at other services in the meantime. Okay, so a quick recap of what we did. 22 minutes. So if you're just tuning in, we're working on an open source project called Companionship Care, and we're improving the project maintainability. So I just added a small configuration file that tells an automated service to look at our code from different quality standpoint. Let's take a quick look at that. We're using a service called Code Climate, and Code Climate will scan your project and give you an overall score of maintainability. It basically looks at common code smells, they call them. It scans all the files and looks for things such as too many arguments to a function, or repeated code, or really complex or unreadable code. And it'll highlight those issues, and it can integrate with pull requests so that when you have, for example, some code coming in from a new contributor or yourself, it'll scan that and highlight the lines of code that might be problematic and give you a little bit of hint how to resolve it. You can then choose to ignore that or not. So we've just merged a small tweak to our configuration file. It might be easier just to show in the IDE, but essentially we added a badge to our README. So essentially we have a maintainability score, and there's an image for our maintainability score and a link to the actual report so you can see line by line what issues we have. We also enabled some more plugins so that we'll have different types of analysis run on the project. We're using version 2 of the Code Climate specification, and we've enabled the PEP8 plugin, Radon for cyclometric complexity, Markdown to make sure our documentation is clean, and Sonar Python, which runs a bunch of different tests like readability, complexity. I can't remember the whole list of them. So we'll get low-level details like if we have lint in our code, not line break at the end of the file, or empty lines, or all sorts of little details, all the way up to really complex security vulnerabilities, and in between readability and maintainability. And we're just telling the Code Climate to ignore our migrations and tests, because those tend to be, the migrations are auto-generated, and the tests might not be written in a way that would be kind of with an eye towards the maintainability that other code paths would be written. Sometimes tests you have to do really unusual things to make set up context or do write different assertions. So we'll ignore those. We won't be too strict about our tests. And maybe in the future we'll enable those. Yeah, so that's it. That was a quick recap of this segment of today's live code hangout. I'm going to work now on a new feature. Actually an old feature, but we're going to reconfigure this old feature or rename it, preserving all of the functionality. So let's hop over to the code base. Let me just clean up a bit. But essentially this project is promoting well-being by facilitating companionship. You might know a friend or a loved one who is living basically alone, independently. They could be an elderly person who is aging in place. They're living at home, but definitely would benefit from companionship and could possibly use some help with day-to-day tasks, running errands, doing housework, things like that. We're building a platform called Companionship Care that helps people come together to provide companionship for a person in need, you could say. So let's take a quick look at the project. And yeah, it's a health domain project. Essentially, we're trying to promote wellness. So it's not kind of like traditionally how you would think of probably healthcare, in a sense. Like we're not like a medical records project. We're really trying to minimize the amount of data and personally identifiable data that we store in this project. So our data model is very simple. It doesn't allow much freeform input. It's pretty constrained. Let me just start it up here. So we got this project directory. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, I see what I was in the wrong directory. And we're going to run a migration to make sure. I think we should be good to go on the main branch. No, Poetry Shell. Yes, we'll spin it up. We got Poetry running now. So it's on the periphery of health domain of healthcare. It could be used by healthcare professionals, such as nurses who are making house calls and visits to take care of people who are living at home and need assistance, some sort of assisted living, but in their home instead of in a residential care facility. Our main, this is all hypothetical. Project is in alpha. It's not, there's no active users. In fact, I don't even have any testing users. I've tried to get some people to try it out, and I've gotten very light feedback, so that's helpful. But I'm not sure how useful the tool is until we get it into daily use by some people. Now, I'm committed to having this project be open source, as well as having a free tier so that cost is not an issue in using the service. The goal is to make it a sustainable business so that we'll be able to continue the development, providing the free service as well as some additional features to paid users. I'll do my best in the price structuring to put a price on the features that have a natural scarcity, where there's actual resources involved that cost us money. Not only is development time a resource, but things like computing time or sending transactional emails, or rendering data, things like that. Those are a natural place to add a price point. We'll really try to keep the pricing simple and even just very affordable. So I know there's a lot of apps that are asking for everything seems to be wanting like 10 euros a month and upwards. And those add up when you got all those services asking for that much money every month. And there's probably reasons why that price point is so popular, but nonetheless, I'm going to try to keep this one a little bit lower price, just enough to sustain it and create a business around it. But again, this is all hypothetical. Here we're developing the software in the open. You can actually deploy it as well. The idea is just to have a managed service so people don't have to worry about deployment. All right, so here's the tool. I'm logging in. I think I've got an, and then just a test user. What you essentially do, the project lives right now online. It's at Companionship Care website, where you can get the details, and you can see an example of how it works here as well. And it's essentially the same screen I'm just developing here. And we're going to have a pricing structure somewhere like this, to the best of my knowledge. Again, just to sustain the project, keep it accessible. But I mentioned this, that sometimes a care professional might be using this tool. Initially, we're gearing it towards families, and that's why the free tier comes into place. We want to promote well-being. That's the mission. And families will often have one of their parents or both who are living independently. The family have moved out and the parents have their own house and life, for example. But they definitely need companionship. We all like visitors and having people to come hang out and call us. They also might need help with these, again, day-to-day activities of living, like grocery shopping or going out for entertainment and cafe. So families can just use that. They can set up a circle for their loved one or both their parents. That's fine. And invite a number of people. So we're going to have a limit of the number of companions you can have. And it's just all the basic features. So nothing that has any transactional cost. These email reminders have a transactional cost for us to run. The service costs some amount monthly, but it's right now negligible. It's around €5 a month just to run the server. So it's not very bad. I'm not using microservices or any of those architectures, and I'm staying away from AWS and all those kind of unpredictable and very opaque cloud service structures. We're just going to use a conventional virtual private server or managed platform as a service. We'll give you community support via GitHub, and this we're going to commit to always having a free tier. And we might tweak the number of companions by increasing it, but really you need companions, so we don't want to limit the number of companions too drastically. We could say maybe 3 or 5. But if you can support us with a small amount monthly or yearly, and we could probably even have a sliding scale cost if it's very prohibitive, but you need more companions. And then you might get some features like email reminders and custom support, as well as some plan features like iCal integration. And some families might have a professional caregiver, or some professional caregivers might manage multiple clients. So in that way, you could add more care circles and more companions and start managing other staff, for example. But all this is hypothetical. So far, we only have a free tier. Let's take a look at this, how it runs. And let me double check what any reason not behind using microservices or AWS. 2 main reasons. One is complexity. Microservices are incredibly complicated. In my day job, I'm working with microservices and service-oriented architecture, and the development flow is just very challenging. And in a way, it's fairly tedious as well, because just the way it's architected, I can't really say too much specifically, but basically, every change requires changes to many different files, and a lot of boilerplate code, and then integrating these service layers. You got APIs or protocol buffers, which add another layer of complexity and fragility. It's not a good architecture for this type of a project whatsoever. In fact, this project can probably scale to any arbitrarily large client base within reason. So, I mean, we're alpha. There's no reason to start with microservices ever until you know your pain points. Then you can optimize for those. Secondly, AWS has extremely complicated pricing, and everything is billed down to logs and everything. You pay for everything. It might seem like up front you're going to save some money because they're offering free tier and this and that. But then you realize you need to enable logging, so you need to enable this service that has a monthly cost. And so not only is the development cost high, but the pricing is very opaque. It's almost impossible to estimate your costs. You would become an AWS specialist. I don't want to be an AWS specialist. I just want to write Django code and product code. And I don't have the capacity to manage that. We don't have the resources. And by the time you end up even moderately scaling a project, you have potentially multiple or a dozen AWS services you're being billed for that you didn't anticipate up front. Yeah, I mean, so it's just a minefield. I think a lot of people are recoiling from that complexity. It seems like it's a false, in a way, it's a false promise that AWS is giving you about just paying for what you need. In fact, you pay for everything, not things that you're not conventionally paying for in a service like a platform as a service, like logging or ingress or things like that. It's just really absurd. They've convinced people that in a false profit and have kind of sent organizations down this line where they're able to instrument every application and bill you at a micro transaction level. Transaction level is great for AWS, but I don't think it's great for most projects. Certainly not this one. So that's the long short of it. Yeah, AWS is a killer, isn't it? So yeah, this is just really simple thing, and I'm running it on a platform as a service. Or I think I'm actually running on it's called Daku, and it's just in a regular what do you call it, virtual private server. So it's the costs are competitive on those. The resources are low, what we need. So I'm able to run it for around $5 a month, flat, no surprises. If I need a bigger servers, I'll scale it up to next tier. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that hard to say, okay, we're outgrowing this. And if it becomes an issue where we have surprises or need flexible scalability, we'll look at the actual code architecture and find out the pain points. And it might not be that the Django project is entirely the cause. There might be one feature that we need to move into another service paradigm. So we'll scale if and when we need it. So here's how it works. Sorry, a bit of a tangent. But it's a really important question that you ask, and that's kind of my thinking about it. It's my opinion, of course. And I don't know, what's your experience with AWS? Have you run any services on there? Or, I'm also, kind of absorbing some of the discussions on places like Hacker News, where people are also explaining their experiences and pain points with AWS and cloud service billing in general. Yeah, what the most really frightening thing is that you can't easily estimate or set an upper limit, an upper threshold on what your budget is for spending. And if something happens, you can just skyrocket. Or if you have an inefficiently designed service, it can cost tens of thousands of euros a month. Like, I can't give it to this specific example. Is probably I worked at a company where we ended up writing an inefficient function that was running a lot and probably the wrong paradigm. And instead of running it on a worker service, like it's conventional, like Celery or something, where you can just provision a virtual server and just run that, and you have a resource limit. We ran it in a way that allowed it. We were billed per transaction, per invocation, and there was a service that was running constantly, multiple hundreds of invocations, like a minute or something, and it was in the 5 figures of cost monthly, because we couldn't. It was a matter of technical debt, a trade-off if you focus on re-architecting that so it's more cost effective, or if you continue delivering features. And the company opted to continue delivering features and burn through that cash. Yeah, so it's like it's really challenging, but some of these companies have that amount of resources to burn through. I don't. $5 a month is already enough to run this thing, which is just essentially at this point a toy. It's not in use, so it's in a way just entertaining. But I think it's a really important idea, and I want to continue developing it. Yeah, I remember you said you quit developing, but I don't know if you had any previous experiences with AWS. But yeah, and it's also good that you're able to kind of navigate your path in life. Now, Dr. Unafraid, are you interested in game development by chance? I know you're streaming games. Would you be interested in collaborating on some game development? I'm kind of considering pivoting in that direction based on recent development experience working for kind of like these on a large service-oriented code. When you say a code base, it's like organizational paradigm. It's just basically showing me that that's not the kind of direction I really want to go. It's kind of very stressful and almost kills the joy of programming for me. So I'd like to get into more, keep doing these smaller projects and maybe do some things that are, entertaining but in a meaningful way, that are sort of infotaining, that are educational while engaging. So here's an example, though, of how this project works. We've got a companionship care circle, and you essentially form a circle for your loved one, and you invite some companions here, and you just schedule some activities that are normal, like things like going out to a movie or spending time in nature. Let's set that for another day so we don't get too many things in one day. They might need some housework help. Say Monday. You schedule these appointments and then you can participate in them, or you can, if you're the caregiver coordinator with a magic wand, you can add other people, such as a professional cleaner who might help. Paul might be a professional cleaner or somebody who can help with housework. I don't know. So yeah, then you say, okay, everything's covered. We're good to go. Charlene's going to have these companions for these activities on these dates. And then you can say, okay, well, we did that when we went out for the movie as planned, or this one didn't happen, so we might need to delete that or change the date. Those are all functioning. Very simple tool. It's a glorified calendar, but what it gives you that a calendar doesn't is a focus on companionship and companions, who's doing what. Companions can also say, I'll join that activity if they were logged in. And you can invite other companions. So it's not quite something I could do with a Google Calendar. It's not a replacement for other communication tools like WhatsApp or Signal or any of those. If anything, we would be a complement to those. It's been suggested that we could add a live chat feature, but that would be putting us in the ballpark of something where we would need a cloud service like well, I think you can do that with Django, honestly. Django perhaps can do real-time chat or signals, but if you want notifications and stuff like that, then it starts to be more complicated. At this point, I'm only committed to doing email notifications. Yeah, actually, that's a good idea, and that's a really important point you make, Dr. Unafraid, about the ways you can contribute to projects like open source games or this one. Playing and using them is actually just as important as coding, in my opinion, and that's why we've gone through the effort of using this, as you probably have seen on this stream, these all contributors, because it's not just people who write code that make these projects happen, right? That we need help doing a lot of things, coming up with ideas, testing it out, finding bugs, improving the documentation for other developers. What do we got here? Writing and running tests and helping with the project infrastructure. There's many ways to contribute. And we with companionship care, we're acknowledging all of those. The same thing with these game development ideas. If you're a play tester, that's really important part of the development process. If you're an artist, a graphics or user experience designer, that's also really important. What kind of now you mentioned you were playing the it's like a first person shooter, not Valorant. Hard time keeping up with these ones. It was popular. What's the game you're playing? You mentioned it before. So let's go ahead and while I'm talking, so that was the demo of this project, and here's where you can check out more information about the pain we're trying to prevent, and how our tool works specifically, and the hypothetical pricing. You can also try it out at app.companionshipcare. But right now I'm in the process of making a backwards incompatible change, so don't add anything just yet. I'm just trying to think if essentially we want to rename a project. So let's just get working on this. So I want to rename this from people to circles. Actually, let me make sure my main branch is up to date. Apex Legends, yeah, that's one. I've been checking that one out a bit on Twitch. Now that's like a run and gun. It's like really fast and arcade oriented, isn't it? You have to think very quickly. I guess all of these shooters cause you to think very quickly. Like you have to be aware of your surroundings and listening all the time. Do you play, now it's Apex Legends, is it more solo oriented or does it have kind of squad oriented? It's a battle royale game if I recall correctly, isn't it? On relatively large maps. I don't know if it's on the scale of PUBG or something like that. Maybe. Battle arenas. Okay, so I'm very fast, yeah. And there's a lot of. Do you have any? Have you noticed any kind of bots or other kind of cheats or hacks being prevalent, or are they able to kind of maintain a pretty clean play? I would say. Now here, I'm going to be intentionally. I'm going to intentionally break backwards compatibility. Okay, you got a team play as well. Very cool. Basically, I've deployed this app for testing, and I just checked yesterday. There's nobody using it, just me. Which, that's just the way it is. I'll have to figure out marketing and things like that. But again, I'm in alpha right now, and that gives me a little bit of license to break things. And so I could try to rename this in a way that preserves the data, or I could just copy it, paste it, and rename it circles. And inside of circles, then I need to go through each of the file. Each file. Oh, what happened there? Okay, circles. So we'll go to admin, apps, models, tests, URLs, and views. One by one, we're just going to look for anything where I see purple, people, eaters, people. We're going to rename those to circles. Now, data models matter. And your data model should map as closely as possible to the natural language people use to talk about the world and your product, how your product or project works. Right now, the language is the way the data model is structured is we're forming sentences like join this person, person companions, person care coordinator. It's person centric. So you have a person, in my example here, we have Charlene, who has companions. Invite companions to Charlene. It seems kind of a little bit weird, but person-centric was the important decision there. I'd like to still be person-centric, but have a more generic term like circle or care circle. Join Charlene's care circle. Join our caring circle. Be a companion in our caring circle. Coordinate our caring circle. I think that's natural. So we're just renaming things here. Apps to circle. Circles. Caring circles. Caregiver circles. I don't know. Hopefully it's not too silly, but you get the kind of point. Oh, what happened there? plural. Circle. Circles. We can localize it this way. Circle detail. Let's see. Some of these, if they're all lowercase, can be handled simultaneously with multi-cursor. That one I have to come back to. Lowercase. Help me if I overlook anything. Squiggle lines. Squiggle lines. Help me out. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Actually, here's what I'll do. This is what I'm gonna do. Case sensitive search and replace. Oops, dang it. All right, so we want person. Now I want this to be, I don't know if multi-cursor can be case sensitive. I think so. No bots. Okay, Apex Legends, there's a lot of cheaters, but 0 bots. Okay. Yeah, I think bots have killed off some games, some pretty famous games. Hey, very cool, Dr. Unafraid. Yeah, I'm going to try to make some educational-oriented games. Got a couple of ideas. Thinking about the genre, it would be something like, so this is capital C, circle. 1 second. Whoops. The genre will be possibly a level-based role-playing game that encourages you to learn concepts about math and physics, science in general, while exploring and developing a player, exploring a world and developing a player. It won't be kind of, I think open world would be a big in scope. 3D would be a bit too big in scope for right now. It would be my first venture into game development. But we might do some small simulation games as a way of kind of getting the thing started. It's primarily oriented towards kids who naturally gravitate towards games. And there's, because they're compelling and they're fun and entertaining. So we'd like an entertaining educational game as well. And I know there's educational games out there, but I'd like to make an open source one. And using the Godot engine. I'm not sure. Have you checked out Godot engine? Yeah, that's a good point, Dr. Unafraid. That's one of the initial tasks is to find some reference games. I remember when I was in school playing games, somewhat educational games, like Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? If that might date me, I think show my age, I guess. I think that might still be popular, or through subsequent generations. Also, what was that one where you Oregon Trail was popular probably in the United States, where you kind of relived this westward expansion as a family crossing the United States on their way to Oregon. That was educational. But yeah, that would be a really cool task. A good way to get involved and help is to research some educational games. Let me just double check here, make sure I don't have any other references to person in this file. Okay, so we got a couple of lowercase ones. Yes. Yes. Yep. 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 Hmm. You can see how person-centric this code base is. I believe the circle is still just as meaningful. And I'll get some feedback before merging this pull request on the semantics. And this would be actually, oh darn, I just did all that. And now I just, I thought it was search and replace. Yes, 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 yes. Pretty much everything was good. I think so. I think so. There's probably a way to do all of them, isn't there? Boom. Okay, Dr. Murray just worked on the type of project they're talking about. It was an education domain project purely for kids. Parents will register and the kids will do basic things like math and other subjects. That sounds pretty cool. Yeah, and one thing is clear to me. So a lot of times lessons masquerade as games. Like, oh, it's like flashcards or doing repetitious exercises and having badges and rewards for that. Well, we want this to be a game, firstly, that has educational elements. We want the game to be the first class thing here. And I don't know what ones you're referring to, how they fall along the spectrum of being a game versus like kind of flashcardy type of things or repetitious. We don't want it to be a grind like some games are. We want to acknowledge when a player has, achieved some kind of, has used their knowledge, learned some new knowledge and used it in the game context, but not make them necessarily do that over and over and over again. So there's a balance there with engaging. I think games have this natural tendency. You want to have players sort of succeed and progress without too much grind or drudgery, unless you're monetizing that, which is also a conflict of interest. All right, so we're getting pretty close through here. So this will be the capital P, circle, 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 circle. And this will be the lowercase c, actually. Well, lowercase p. Yeah, looking good. Probably could have done this on the whole folder with this search and replace function. Oh boy. Case sensitive here. I'm gonna do them all. It's a bit of a lot of clicking, probably a bit annoying. Kids 3 to 7-year-old. Okay, so primary school kids. Badges and rewards in the project. Yeah, it's not to say badges and rewards aren't useful. In fact, one of our big inspirations for this idea is from Khan Academy, which uses badges and rewards and energy points pretty effectively. But one of the big limitations in my perspective of Khan Academy is it is just catering towards lessons and activities. So it's more of like a workbook than a game, right? It's kind of saying, okay, now we're going to learn division. You're going to practice division. Then you're going to take a quiz on division. Then you're going to, at the end of this section of our math book, you're going to take another test. And if you get enough points, you pass the section. Yeah, that's basically a glorified workbook. And that's okay. And Khan Academy is really marvelous and freely available, a very excellent platform. the game idea will be a complement to that. And perhaps Khan Academy is fairly engaging with their badges and point system. But I think there's a need for a game to walk you through and get you to use your math in context to solve problems that aren't quite as contrived. But that's always the difficulty, is how do we make this knowledge useful and show the kid why this is relevant. Incidentally, game development itself is one of the best ways of demonstrating the usefulness of math and physics, and things like that, because game mechanics often revolve around math. Like moving a character requires understanding of coordinate spaces, like a Cartesian plane. And oftentimes you'll want basic physics interactions like falling objects or rockets that go boom, which those involve not only physics, if you're like kind of modeling gravity, but also particles and things for the explosions. So yeah, it really makes math applied. It's challenging to learn, and right now we're working through a programming tutorial called Learn to Program with GD Script. Yeah, we played that Kerbal Space Program. Have you played Kerbal Space Program, Dr. Unafraid? And most of our rockets, yep, they were the failures. We have had some successful missions, though. Okay, so now we need the capital P person. So I think the first reference is here. No, up here. Oh, right, of course. Or just right here. I'm going to run this code, of course. And then our templates. Yeah, it's pretty fun game. It's not multiplayer, unfortunately. I think they're going to release Kerbal Space Program 2 early next year or sometime next year. Basically, you just build rockets. You build a space program, like more than just rockets, in fact. Starting with very simple things, depending if you're in career mode or sandbox mode or science mode. I think science is the right balance. Career mode is meant to simulate not only how you build a space program, but then the financial aspects of that and prestige, things like that, like how famous you are and how recognizable you are can influence funding and what you can afford to build. Science mode is just focused on exploration and building with a natural progression that the more elaborate your space program gets, the more science programs points you unlock, and then that means you can basically research more advanced technologies to go further and further into space or into the solar system. Yeah, let's see. I'll just pop it up. I can't send links on this chat, but the Kerbal Space Program. KSP. Early access. Wow, this is coming soon. And this KSP2 is going to be really cool. I think they'll even introduce multiplayer and a more smooth learning curve. Right now, Kerbal Space Program, it has quite a steep learning curve. It can be frustrating at times because you're literally building rockets, piloting them, landing them, building lunar and other extra terrestrial. You can build not only surface but also space stations. It's really cool. This Kerbal Space Program, for example, for some reason it's priced here, but oftentimes it's on offer. They've got a couple of expansions that are both worth getting if you can get them as a bundle. Okay, early access on February 24th, 2023. It's a great game. You can check out some streamers like Scott Manley, who has really great tutorial videos showing you how to get a basic rocket build, how to get into orbit, how to do a lunar mission. The planet you start off on is called Kerbin. It has 2 moons. One is closer than the other. One is bigger than the other. And so each of those has different mission requirements. It's a very cool project. And the cool thing about it, it's a game, but in the process of playing this game, you have to like learn orbital mechanics, things like thrust to weight ratio, drag, all sorts of things that you wouldn't really naturally have a reason to encounter in day-to-day life, but are crucial parts of building and operating a space program. But it's done in a way that's playful and fun and silly, so your mistakes don't feel so big of mistakes, and your players don't really die. They kind of come back a little bit later. I think it's kind of fun, and then they're quasi-humanoid Kerbins. It's a great game. I'm looking forward to Kerbal Space Program 2. I hope it runs on Linux, because I don't have a gaming computer with Windows on there or anything. But yeah, this game's been around for a while. It's got a crazy following and a lot of great YouTube videos on there, so check it out. Yeah, and it doesn't explicitly make you do math equations or anything like that, or flashcards or any of those types of things, but it will teach you physics. And they have some tutorials, so it does kind of walk you through it a bit. But yeah, just thinking about how to orbit and change your orbit between different celestial bodies and stuff like that, it's a different way of thinking that you learn than walking around on one planet. It's pretty cool. It has a multiplayer mod. I've tried it with a friend. It's decent because it's fun to get in there and fly around with people. But it's not quite as engaging as I was hoping it would be, and a little bit buggy. It has tons of different mods. Some that'll actually do the math for you. You still have to pretty much build the rocket, although on Steam there are tons of pre-made rockets that you can just buy and fly. Or yeah, essentially you have to have science points and a budget. If you're in science mode, I think that's the way to start. All right. So I think at this point we're going to go through the templates. That's the last one. And here in a minute, I'm going to have to go swimming. Go to the swimming pool. So I actually don't know if I'll be able to finish this. Oh yeah, so yeah, I'm going to be streaming only for a few more minutes. I'll come back later in the evening though, and work on this or another project. Heck, I might even actually start some game dev streaming with this educational game in mind. And the initial steps aren't going to be so much programming oriented. I'm still learning GD script and how to develop with Godot. So on the stream, I might work through some of the Learn GD script. Learn programming with GD script is the name of the course I'm taking. As well as coming up with some game ideas. Yeah, because the initial steps in game development are more of like coming up with ideas, creating stories, describing characters. Everybody is welcome to contribute those types of things. You don't have to know programming or any complicated skills like 3D modeling or even drawing. You can do just really basic sketches, just describe characters. So yeah. Okay, all right. Well, Dr. Unfred, good luck on cleaning your house. I hope that goes well, and look forward to seeing you again on the stream. And if you're interested, I'll set up this repository. And if you've got a GitHub account, you can I think that's the only barrier, is just have it in a GitHub account in order to participate on these projects. So if you've got a GitHub account, you're good to go, and you can hop in and we can collaborate. Okay, so now I'm going to search for person and replace it with circle in. See you later, Dr. Unafraid. Have a great day. directory. How do I get to the directory? There it is. Okay. So in project, templates, project, templates. Yeah, we can rename it to circle. Looks good. And this one, no. I'll have to find one for that. That's no problem though. It's just a group of people. So this one I can rename, replace. Well, actually, not this one, not that one. All right. Let's find an icon for that. Should be up here. Okay. Yeah, so things are breaking. Got to run. Oh, I just didn't register the app. That's the other thing. All right. Project core settings. Yes. Oh. And the migrations need to be reset. And PyCache can be reset. It's too big. Hopefully that'll work. Yeah, I'll have to take a break now. The chat is still a bit hard to read on light screens, isn't it? I'll fix that a little bit later. But made some good progress today. So we'll come back to it, and I'm not going to summarize this one yet. Yeah, so I need to actually delete the other. There's a bit of a collision. I'll have to delete the other code. But okay, I'll call it good for now. I've got some concrete errors to come back around to, and we'll get it running in the next session. So this has been another live code hangout. Let me just do a recap though where we stand. Hello and welcome to a summary of today's live code hangout. We've been working on the companionship care app, and in this segment we've been renaming an app essentially to be more kind of generic. And essentially what I'm doing is taking code from one app that's named people and renaming it to circles. What I've gone through is all the URLs, views, tests, models, app definition, the admin, and templates, and just kind of renamed the word person to circle. The idea is it's person-centric care, but you form a caring circle around this person to provide basic needs. I'm in the midst of this change, and there's a lot of collisions happening on different models. So I'll have to go through these errors a little bit later. There's not a lot really to summarize right now. These are uncommitted changes, but when I do get it in a better shape, I'll do a more full summary and open a pull request on GitHub. Nonetheless, this has been a live code hangout. Thanks to Dr. Unafraid for joining, and It's always nice to have somebody to chat with while we're doing live code. I hope you're doing well out there, and have a great day.